Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
Welcome back to another edition of Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to what's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues. At the state capitals, they are Jason McGuire of New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedoms and Michael Geer at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Michael, let's begin with you. Record 9 million Pennsylvanians are ready to go for November 3rd. Voter registrations at an all-time high in the Keystone State, and a lot of folks are keyed in on your state. Polls show that the president is down as many as 13 and as close as 2 or 3 points there, so don't put a lot of stock in the polls right now, but most would agree he is behind in Pennsylvania. What does he need to do to close the gap down the home stretch?
Well, a significant impact is going to be made on what the turnout is and what the base is going to do. And I think with the vice presidential debate that we witnessed this week, the vice president did a great job, I think, in pointing out the differences on the policy issues between the Trump administration and the Biden-Harris ticket. And so if President Trump can do that same and bring the case home to the voters of Pennsylvania on issues like fracking and the economy and the sanctity of life and so many other issues where the Trump administration has been very strong, I think we can see a surge in voter turnout, but it is going to be a close race. Pennsylvania was the deciding state in the 2016 election, and ultimately it comes down to what the voters do. Yeah. Not so much what the president does.
Yeah. Pence must have said fracking about 24 times on Wednesday night, and you know he was talking to the voters in Pennsylvania when he said that. Let's head on over to New York State. If you are in that I don't know who to vote for crowd, there's still a few of you out there that are still undecided, whether it be the presidential election or a lot of those congressional races. Then you've come to the right place, Jason, because hot off the presses is your new non-partisan voter guide. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we offer an online voter guide available at nyvoterguide.com, nyvoterguide.com, and it allows residents of New York State to go ahead and type in their name and their address and to see the specific candidates that will be on their ballot from the presidential race, vice president, congressional, state senate, and state assembly. And you not only see the candidates on the ballot, but you see where they stand on the issues, a wide range of issues. And so we think it's a terrific way to make sure you're an informed voter, and then at the end of the process, when you choose your candidates, you can then text those names to your mobile device, or you can print out a ballot and take it with you. So it's a great way to be informed when you vote.
All right, we're going to be talking more about those voter guides at our Capital Connection live event. That's coming up later this month, and we'll get to that in a minute. But, Michael, you also have a voter guide as well as advice for church leaders on how to get through this election season. A lot of questions there. But if you would, tell us a little bit about your voter guide in Pennsylvania.
Here we have both an online and a print version of the voter's guide. Both the print version is legal for distribution in churches, and we have many hundreds of churches around the Commonwealth that have requested voters' guides, and there's still time for them to do that and to distribute in the church. And then at pafamilyvoter.com, that's a place where you can go online to get a personalized voter's guide that specifically lists the folks in the district where you live, in the precinct where you live. So as you put in your address in there and your zip code, it will create a personalized voter's guide that tells where the candidates where you vote, where they stand on the issues from president all the way down to state legislative races.
All right, so there's no reason not to be an informed voter this year. We thank you both for putting out that voter guide. The big headline in New York this week, Jason, was this color-coded COVID cluster action initiative. Governor Cuomo seems to be taking a page out of the Wolf playbook when it comes to his color-coded approach to this. You've got red, orange, yellow, causing a lot of conversations around the water coolers this week. Explain, if you would, how this works and what your concerns are here.
Well, right now the governor has these new restrictions coming in areas where he's seeing spikes in the coronavirus cases. The strictest areas, red, would only allow even houses of worship, for example, to have 10 people gathered in worship. The orange would be raised to then a larger number, and ultimately yellow was at 50% capacity of the building. But that's some contradictory information even to his statewide protocols right now. And so there's been a lot of uproar from the Orthodox Jewish community on this issue, but really all people of faith should be concerned about this, as again we're seeing these lockdowns that are really targeting a religious community, not really being broadly applied and not making sense across the state. So this is something that we are trying to work with the Cuomo administration through, but frankly it's not been very conducive to conversations on these matters.
Yeah, and a lot of folks are worried, hey, we're going back to where we began here, and that's got a lot of businesses concerned, a lot of folks rightly concerned as well. Let's flip the page, talk politics. Of course, the big story this week in Pennsylvania was Senator Pat Toomey's announcement that he will not seek re-election. Maybe not so much that news, but the news that, because a lot of folks thought he was a shoo-in to run for governor. He said, I'm not going to do that either. Your reaction, Michael?
Well, I'm not completely surprised. We thought, though, that for quite a while that Senator Toomey would consider a run for governor in Pennsylvania with the Wolf administration ending in 2 years in that 2022 election. But I had heard some talk from people that know Senator Toomey well that he was really thinking that he had done his public service. He had been a supporter of term limits. That going back into the private sector from whence he came was something that he was going to do. So I like Senator Toomey. I think he would have been a very good governor, and so I'm a little bit disappointed that he's chosen not to run, but it's not a complete surprise.
All right, we'll talk more about how vulnerable that seat might be in our next program, but let's talk state races here, Jason. A lot of folks forget that it's not just federal. You got, 35 U.S. Senate seats, all 435 congressional seats up for grabs November 3rd, but you have talked a lot on this program about the dangers of one-party rule. And in New York State, nowhere is that more a political reality. Any chance that one-party rule may be coming to an end in November?
Well, right now our state legislature, if they pick up 2 more seats, we're in a supermajority status to where the legislature could essentially override a gubernatorial veto, which at times, I know to some of the listeners of this audience, sounds like a good thing. They want to see gubernatorial vetoes overridden. Yeah. But if you understand the makeup of that legislature is a far-left progressive wing of the AOC kind of wing of the party, then if you see a gubernatorial veto, that means they're passing things that even Andrew Cuomo doesn't want to do. That's what we're talking about. We talk about one-party rule, is it is likely the Democratic Party, the progressive wing, the Democratic Socialists, that if they pick up 2 seats this November, there will be no stopping the progressive takeover of New York State.
Wow, unbelievable. Michael, we heard from the Secretary of State this week about 2.5 million mail-in ballots have been sent out. Something like 4% of those mail-in ballots have been sent back in. But there's a big court battle right now having to do with voter signatures on these ballots. Explain that if you would.
Well, the issue has to do with signatures on the ballots, on the mail-in ballots. The Trump administration has filed a lawsuit in federal court saying that ballots should have the opportunity to be thrown out if there's a discrepancy with a signature that's on file with what comes in on the ballot. Yeah. The Pennsylvania Secretary of State says no, there should be no real scrutiny of those signatures, and it raises questions about, well, then how do you validate a ballot coming in that it came from the person who is registered to vote, and that's what's really at issue here.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this last week. Hopefully, we'll know soon after November 3rd, but there's a good chance we won't because of all those mail-in ballots. And then finally, Jason, this shameless plug here. We have a big event coming up, October 22nd, 7 p.m., Capital Connection Live. Both you and Michael are going to be taking part in that. If you've ever wondered what Jason and Michael look like, here's your chance. You're both going to be on stage here at Family Life for this Capital Connection Live event. Why do people need to make a point to attend or watch it online?
Well, this is an opportunity for people that have some interest in politics to go deeper in that area. People are always asking me, what can they do to make a difference? I always tell them to take one step further towards getting more involved, to get more biblically engaged in their civic responsibilities. And this is an opportunity if you say, I'd like to get more involved, I don't know how, I don't know much about politics. Think of this as a 101 class, a chance for you to come out to learn about the current issues of the day, some of the candidates, to ask questions, really in a safe environment where you can grow in your political astuteness. So it'd be a great opportunity to interact on this particular occasion.
All right. And again, maybe you don't want to know what Jason and Michael look like, but I'm sure a few of you do. But there's so much information that we can't get to on this program. Michael, you have a wonderful website where folks can go and check you out. What is that, sir?
PAFamily.org.
Stay informed on all the issues as well in New York State. Jason, your site, sir?
AlbanyUpdate.com.